Hi, Ben Carpenter here. I'm going to talk to you about the effects of meal frequency and body composition. I.e., is it better to eat more or less meals throughout the day if your goal is to gain lean body mass or lose fat mass? So, a little bit of background. Here are some theories on the topic. When you eat a meal, you will use a certain amount of calories digesting that. Food has something called a thermic effect. So let's say you eat a meal, you have something called postprandial thermogenesis. So in theory, if you eat more meals throughout the day, you will stimulate this postprandial thermogenesis and you will stoke the metabolic furnace to burn more calories throughout the day. Also, in terms of muscle gain, it's common for bodybuilders to eat, let's say, every 2 or 3 hours, consuming protein, with the idea that this would maximize gains in lean body mass. So, what's the truth? What does the research say? I'm doing this video now because there is a meta-analysis on the topic. A meta-analysis essentially means that it looks at all available research and comes to an appropriate conclusion. So it's common in the fitness industry for someone to find one study which supports their view, tells their followers about it, and everyone believes that particular study. But what if there was one study that said 6 meals per day was better for fat loss, but there were 10 studies that said that 3 meals per day were better than 6? If you post this to your followers, everyone believes this without realizing that the majority of the research refuted it. That's why a meta-analysis is important. So, results of this meta-analysis. I'm going to keep this as brief and as simple as possible. 327 started out at the top of the funnel. They had to meet certain inclusion criteria. They had to have been at least 2 weeks long in duration. They had to have been in humans, aged 18 years or older. The study had to have been written in English, and they had to have measured body composition, obviously. So, 327 studies got whittled down to 15 studies which met the inclusion criteria. The conclusion: there was a significant association between meal frequency, increased meal frequency, and changes in lean body mass and changes in fat mass and body fat percentage. Basically, increased meal frequency led to greater lean body mass retention, as well as greater losses in body fat and greater changes in body fat percentage. So increased meal frequency does seem to support if you're trying to lose body fat or hold on to muscle tissue and dieting. However, and I'm sorry there's got to be a however because it always pisses people off, it makes it more complicated. However, upon removal of one study in particular, the changes were no longer significant. So basically there was one study which was heavily influencing the final result. So once they removed that study from it, there appeared to be no significant differences either way. So here are my cliff notes for you. The majority of the research in this meta-analysis was done on sedentary populations, not athletic populations. The study that did look at athletic populations did favour increased meal frequency. One of the other limitations to this was that the studies, the majority of which looked at low to moderate protein intake rather than people that increased their protein intake. So if you are someone who is training, which you probably are if you're watching this video, and you're someone that's on a higher protein intake, which again is quite possible if you're watching this video, the amount of conclusions that you can draw from this personally from the topic are quite slim because there's a lack of research in that particular population. So to reiterate, in the one study which did look at athletic populations, it did tend to favour higher meal frequency. So, super simplified cliff notes. There's a lot of research on the topic. The results are far from being definitive. It is possible that an increased meal frequency might be better for losing body fat or holding on to lean body mass, but there isn't enough research on training athletic populations specifically with an increased protein intake to really draw any definitive conclusions for bodybuilders. So, increasing meal frequency definitely isn't bad, almost definitely isn't detrimental, might be beneficial, but how beneficial it is, we don't really know yet until there's more research on the topic. So that's it. So for the moment, I would go with personal preference, whatever you tend to adhere to, or if you're dieting, whatever appears to modulate your appetite better. So if someone finds it easier to adhere to lower calories when they're eating less frequently, I would tend to lean towards that as an approach. Or if someone can regulate their appetite better with increased meal frequency, I would go for that as an approach. But I would base it largely on personal preference at the moment until more research comes to light. That's it. I hope you found it interesting. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Ben Carpenter Personal Training, or my Twitter or Instagram pages, which are both BDC Carpenter. And thank you for watching. Bye.